Hi Gina.
Hi Ione. Hi everyone. I'm Gina, the senior editor of Polyester.
And I'm Ione, the founding editor-in-chief of Polyester. And this is the Polyester Podcast, a feminist pop culture podcast dissecting the discourse on a weekly basis.
Before we start, if you're a fan of this podcast, please make sure to like, rate and subscribe. And if you really love us, you can sign up for a podcast membership, where you can join our WhatsApp and get on our Instagram close friends for only £3 a month. Do we have any reviews, Ione?
We do. 5 stars, the girls. When they say the girls and the gays, these are the girls. Found this podcast via Instagram Reels and immediately loved the cultural commentary in a way that's both organic and unpretentious, but well thought and researched. Love this podcast, and I love it when you guys disagree, which is very cute. That is by Nina in the US of A.
Yeah, that's like the perfect review.
Very lovely.
I've never had a nice review in my life.
Shut up. You have.
That's absolutely stunning though.
How are you, Gina Tonic?
I'm good. How are you, Ione Gamba?
I'm fine.
I had my first commute this morning.
How was it?
It was good, yeah. I had my the Von Dest remix on, I was on the bus, the sun was shining, the grass was green, the tank was clean.
And now, we're about to ruin it all.
Yeah, we're going to antagonise each other a bit.
I don't plan on antagonising you. So, what are we talking about today, G?
Today we're talking about a Substack essay that was kind of slagging off media parties, or the current state of media parties, that you found through people discussing it on Twitter, but then it kind of turns out that the Substack publication, which is called These Links, kind of writes essays for them to go viral on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then the essay itself was talking about like journalists being boring, like the community being cut off, and just kind of like not enjoying these media parties that were kind of like shown to be incredible in like the media of their youth.
Basically, I've put, why are journalists obsessed with themselves?
Yeah.
Too long didn't read.
Too long didn't read.
Yeah, why journalists are obsessed with themselves.
If you need a summary, 2 journalists are going to get into why journalists are obsessed with themselves.
I'm not obsessed with myself. I'll say it now.
I'm a little bit obsessed with myself. A little bit.
No, okay, so wait, I'll do it properly. So, These Links Substack publication posted an anonymous article about how bad media parties are. Everyone on Twitter has lost their minds, so I'll read some out to you.
And this is the New York media scene. Do you think it's applicable to here?
Yeah, well, kind of. I think, I wrote in my notes, let me get into it first.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
So, Rebecca Jennings tweet, media party discourse on Twitter, heavy breathing, anxious posturing, people at actual media parties. Hey man, how's it going? Someone called Maya Kossoff said, I used to host a media happy hour and now I don't work in media. My life is exponentially better and my friends are not media friends, just friends, some of whom work in media and many of whom do not. It gets better.
It gets better? Are you mental? You've not been like gay bashed.
Someone called Gabby said, I've long said that there are no cool kids in an industry almost entirely made up of people who at one point in their lives were involved in their high school newspaper or debate club. Kylie Robinson says, New York media scene sounds like hell on earth. I'm sorry, please don't throw stones. Someone else says, there's just so many, like literally I was at Gina's new flat and I was just refreshing Twitter for the For You page and it's just coming up over and over, like tens of tweets.
Yeah, you just kept reading them out and I was going, what the fuck? And then you were going, no, the algorithm is like bringing them to me now.
Yeah.
Did your school have a newspaper?
Not my school, my uni did.
Did you have a debate club?
No, we spoke about this last week.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Mm.
When someone said they were in a debate club and I said, and then you said you're in the environmental club.
I was in the environmental club. I was, yeah.
I don't think we had clubs at my school.
It was more just like for the kids who didn't want to walk home because they'd get absolutely bullied and like battered, so you just stay behind after school for an extra half hour and have like a tag on it.
Mm-hmm. So continuing tweets, Angie Jem says, main thing this piece highlights is the very important difference between media friends, which is sad if that's the only friend you got, as opposed to normal friends, some of whom happen to work in the media. Terry Nugan said, so funny to me when people take their job/identity so seriously. This is pretty much the case for every industry, except media has a higher percentage of publicly annoying people. And that's what it comes down to, isn't it, really? Gina?
Yeah, I agree.
Don't get distracted.
No, I agree with her. I was just pontificating.
So I think when I was looking at all of this as well, it kind of made me think that Twitter is basically just like journalist staff rooms, especially as so many journalists are freelance. But I don't understand what it is that makes journalists so obsessed with slagging off their profession on Twitter.
Well, people love slagging off their jobs anyway. And they're just doing it on this platform where they're going to get gratification from other media people. And they'll also get this kind of like an elevation to slagging off your job when it's a job that's really highly coveted, because it shows like you are like so above it all that you can slag it off.
Mm-hmm. I think there's this like subsection of people who work in media that basically make their job their personal brand, but as in they don't make their work their personal brand. It's the fact they're a journalist is their personal brand.
Yeah, a journalist or an editor or a magazine founder.
Yeah, exactly. So there'll be like 20 TikToks a day being like, I'm this and I did this because X, I run this magazine, and
Because
it's just
of
like
this, yeah.
it's never actually the work, it's just them being the job.
Yeah, and I understand why people do it. A lot of the time, like, people might do it to get more business for their magazine because people will buy into a person as a brand because of the way that social media is. Like, I understand that strategy. And I think I have, to an extent, made my work my brand, but I think because my work is so revolved in identity.
I think that's two different things, though.
You kind of have to.
Like, we never see these people's work. We just...
No, yeah.
They get people interested in them because they are, like, an editor / journalist / writer who has something.
Yeah.
Like, X identity. It's not like they're not posting their work.
No, I know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with her. I think they're like, especially when it's just slagging off as well, you're like, this is just miserable town.
It is miserable, and it's like baiting people into caring about you, but not because you're actually doing anything worthwhile.
Well, it's baiting people into thinking that you're like in this elevated position, that you are so elevated that you can complain.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying like that even journalism is an elevated position. I don't think it is.
I mean, yeah, we're not doing up like boomer Gen X saying that you can't complain about your job, because I've definitely done like tweets and Instagram stories before when people don't pay me. But I do think it's a bit like tone deaf to complain about certain things in journalism when it is like a middle class profession, essentially. That's arguable, I suppose, in some ways, because like journalism is badly paid, like journalism is this, journalism is that. But in comparison to like most other professions, it's a middle class profession, like compared to like teachers or teaching assistants or literally anything. And this brings me to my other point, like in terms of parties being bad, you don't expect like an accountancy party to pop off.
Well, exactly. Like, the work party is only as good as the people who you work with.
Facts.
And then going back to what you said as well, like, it's an aspirational job because it's been depicted to be one, and because there's so many few roles in it, there's so many jobs being lost, like, daily in this profession. So it does... I'm not saying people aren't allowed to complain. I'm just saying that, like, if all you're doing is complaining, it just comes across as ungrateful.
Yeah. And... Okay, let's actually go through the article and see if you agree.
Yeah, sorry, we've just like aired our own
our own
back to the source.
So this is the article. It's anonymous, so I can't attribute it. The headline is "Circus Behaviour and Everybody is Monkey, Monkey, Monkey Clown."
That's like the best sentence I've ever read. I'm sorry.
It begins with, "I used to want to be a part of the media party circuit so bad. As a young person aspiring to be a writer, I would zoom into certain Instagram stories of interest, wondering how everyone there got to go. Now, as a person attending them, I'm pissed off. I was lied to, bamboozled, swindled, hoodwinked, like a young maiden in the depths of a dark forest. These things are not fun at all. And it's primarily because you people do not know how to put your boots on the ground and serve cunt."
Lie. Biggest lie I've ever heard. What parties are you going to?
Well, I will say, like, I think misery, like, begets misery. Lots of parties are bad. Like, I don't go to a lot of parties because they are bad and miserable, because people have up themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you go into networking parties expecting to have a good time, that's different. Like, that's a part of your job is networking and going to events that are for networking. If you're looking for a party, go to a party. Yeah,
it's kind of like a mirror to the media industry in general, because we have really fun parties.
Yeah, I've had the time of my life at all of our parties when I wasn't asleep. And I think we've made networking fun as well at those. Like, we've introduced people to so many other people who they like would get on with or like could work with, and I've definitely like found so many of my connections through going out. Like, I don't mean to slag off networking. I think it is a valuable tool as a journalist, but I think you choose who you want to network with, and those people should be fun and should be at the right, like, should be at not the right parties. Like, that sounds so like snobbish, but like the right party to me is with people that are aligned with what I want to do and that I can enjoy talking to.
Well, this is also a really interesting point, because it really kind of sets up the exclusivity of the whole thing, like being like, oh, how do you get to these parties? How do you get an invite? How do you do this? How do you do that? And these parties are like part of a working of it, in London at least, like part of the inner workings of like a media industry that seeks to exclude people that aren't like them. So obviously they're going to be bad, and like, why do you kind of aspire to be in these rooms all of your life that don't want you? I think a reason why our events are fun is because they're never like closed.
Yeah, they're never exclusive.
Yeah.
And they're always a laugh.
Yeah.
And I think there's a purpose built into the way that we produce a party to be enjoyable, whereas I think maybe, like, in the thing she's written, she's like, we need to reinvent the media party, we need to readjust our priorities, nobody likes having the worth assessed on the currency of the job title, fair enough, but then it's like, all these people are boring, the food is small bites, like, and I'm like, right, you're getting a bit, like, off kilter now, like, it's slagging off hors d'oeuvres. What's that got to do specifically with media parties?
I also love hors d'oeuvres, I will say.
I love an
They're
hors
so
d'oeuvre.
fancy.
Also, when we interviewed Gemma, she just went, can you just give me a tray of them? And they went, yeah, fine.
Canapes.
Yeah, innit?
I will say canapé is like canapes forever now, because that's how Gemma Collins said it.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. Like, you can make that, like, your own fun. Like, she's like, oh, you have to, like, reach over and grab it off a tray, so you're, like, not making a tit of yourself in front of all these people that you want to impress. No, like, you've made yourself unfun. And I was also just picturing her at the party, like, she's detailing the people being like, these men who wear a criminal amount of Carhartt but have never touched a shovel. These people who went to Harvard and only talk to each other. I'm like, you're the cunt who's just sat in the corner thinking that you're better than everyone while you're on your phone playing on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, writing notes for your little D's Links article. Like, I'm the one in the corner having a fucking laugh with my mates, and I'm looking over and you're stood there misery arse. Like, I don't think you're contributing to media parties being good.
You're all right. But then it got me to thinking, like, why do we... So to round off, someone called Chris Osborne tweeted that Jemima Kirk Instagram story thing, which was like, any advice to people who are self-conscious, and then she says, I think you guys might be thinking about yourself too much, but the person changed it to any advice to New York media people, and I think it's true. We are also thinking about it too much, but how I said, overall this begs the question as to why anyone thought media parties would be good, and I think we've basically been set up. There's so many deep lines of nostalgia that run through journalism and media as a career, starting with rom-coms in the early noughties.
Starting with, or that's you've started with?
For us, yeah, for our generation.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I see like that as like a TikTok or a tweet all the time, being like, why was I sold the dream of like Bridget Jones or like Sex and the City, where you'd write like one article and then go on the fucking time of your life.
£6 a word or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think this ties into the fact that Sex and the City is on Netflix for the first time as well, and everyone keeps being like, no, Gen Z are going to find out about Carrie Bradshaw. It's like, do you not think they knew? Anyway, like, they're on Instagram. Instagram is literally 200 pictures of Carrie Bradshaw every day.
Also, I'm not being funny, on TikTok you can literally watch an episode of Sex and the City. Like, people are just uploading it in like 5 pounds.
True. Gina's never watched Sex and the City though.
No, it is. I've watched one, and I think Alanis Morissette was in it, and she was wearing, Carrie was wearing gold boots and she smoked weed. And I think that's like kind of what I vaguely remember, but it was like 8 years ago.
I found this article that kind of, because in my head it's prolific that lots of rom-com protagonists have media jobs, but I don't know if it was just like my own bias, because I wanted to be in the media, that I just thought every single person in a film also was in the media.
Yeah,
but it turns out we were right.
No,
so,
I think you were right.
How Did Journalism Become the It Career for Rom-Com Protagonists by Emma Spector for British Vogue. She kind of outlines like where this started, and it started with His Girl Friday, which is very apt at the moment.
Yeah, it's on the nose a bit. I read that, I went, what?
Have we even talked about the beer yet?
No, I don't think we have. Do you want to explain, or shall I?
Well, I don't mind. So we've basically done a charity beer for Eden called His Girl Friday, because His Girl Friday was Eden's favourite film, and obviously she was a hot girl journalist. I haven't actually seen the film.
I haven't seen it. You should watch the film. I think, like, I've never watched it because I was like, Eden wrote the fucking black and white film, fuck off. And then obviously she passed, and then I was like, it should be too sad for me to watch it. But Bridget did the design for the can. Yeah. Bridget Main, incredible illustrator and polyester friend, did the design for the can, and she watched the film and she said it is really good. So I will get round to it, I promise. So it started with His Girl Friday.
Yes, and then in 1976 there was Faye Dunaway and Diana Christensen in the 1976 Satire Network, and then probably what we remember is like Kate Hudson in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Jennifer, what's her name? From 13 Going on 30.
Oh, don't do this to me, because as soon as I'm put on the spot, everything leaves my brain. She used to date
Jennifer
Ben
Garland.
Affleck.
Is that her name?
No. Jennifer Garland.
Garner.
Garner.
Also, What's Andy Sachs, Anne Hathaway
Yes.
in Devil Wears Prada.
Yes.
Even in the Hills, Lauren Conrad goes and does like a Teen Vogue internship, and Whitney, that's how she meets Whitney Port. That's reality telly, obviously. And in Gossip Girl, Blair goes and does a W internship. And
W?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Why?
I don't know. I just wouldn't think that would be mentioned in like a TV program.
W Magazine?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I'm sorry, my bias is getting ahead of me. I've not watched it though, have I? I don't know how modern it is. And then you've put in the research as well, like you think not only is it the Sex and the City nostalgia, but the girls' nostalgia that's bringing this around.
Well, I think it's interesting from like a generational point of view how we kind of have these films that are from like 2003 to 2010 or whatever. I mean, how old was I in 2003? 9. So that would have been like a very first formative experience. That's how old we were, right?
Oh yeah, you were, but do you remember when you were like... I was 15 in 2008. No, actually, you probably were. But...
I was 15 in 2008.
No, yeah, sorry. I'm so like good at maths that I can't even tell a lie.
Basically how the nostalgia machine works. So at the moment on Twitter, we have like a bunch of journalists in their late 20s to late 30s that were sold a lie about what journalism looks like. They've come up through their career, like throughout layoffs, throughout like recession after recession after recession after pivot to media. And like, it's horrible. There's no denying that. And we'd all just love to have like more expense lunches. Although I will say I think Gina has a very warped perspective of this after her first 24 hours in London.
Oh, I know, and it's only just about to like ramp up. Like I've got like, I went for a free dinner yesterday, courtesy of Lauren on our team and Ione on our team, who took us, the Polyester girlies, to Keeza and Peckham. It was beautiful.
We were invited by a lovely PR.
Yes, and then we went to today. We're going to
an afternoon tea on a
double-decker bus, and then in the evening we're going to go see Six Sad Girls.
Yeah,
at Lady the Tay. And then Saturday I'm going to a birthday party.
I'm not coming to that.
I'm having a baptism of fire, and I was like, next week you're just going to be sat in your house being like.
Glamour is what you make of it. It's the moral of the tale here.
I wrote this down in my notes. I went, sorry, but this job is glam. Grow up and go for a blow dry. Like your job is as glam as you make. Like, and I think maybe like the work from home generation has kind of like killed it off a bit as well. Like getting ready to get dressed and like go to a job where you're doing the thing that you wanted to do since you were a kid. That's so glam.
Yeah.
But like we've gotten so used to just sitting around in our like joggies, or even like coming to work in our joggies now, like no makeup, like Zoom calls, you can put a fucking filter on it.
Yeah.
That people aren't seeing the job as glamorous anymore, especially amidst all like amidst. That sounds wrong. Amidst.
Yeah.
Especially among all the layoffs and everything. Like it's a very bleak time to go into journalism. I saw that Jason on Twitter, I can't remember his last name, who is on Twitter, saying like he went freelance in the pandemic and I did the same thing. Like that, I quit my job. You
weren't freelance for long though.
I wasn't freelance for long. Thank you. But like went freelance in the pandemic. I wouldn't feel comfortable going freelance now.
Yeah, that's true. And there is like a lot of financial precarity.
Yeah, defo.
In journalism, especially like in terms of job security and stuff. But what I thought was really interesting is that obviously we have this kind of like pre-2007 financial crash, rose-tinted glasses of what we think journalism should be. But then even younger people do not think that. So Hunter Schafer was just on the cover of GQ and she was talking about the Girls' Renaissance. So this is the quote. She's in the middle of rewatching Girls, a show she adores and refers to as a period piece. An apt point, but a humbling one for a millennial journalist to hear nonetheless. Quote, in the aesthetic sense, I mean, she clarifies. Their outfits feel so heightened, she says, with the tone of someone considering an ancient civilization for the first time. Is that what it was like? She's been getting some of her friends to watch it, and it's been sparking ideas about the narrative projects she'd like to pursue. We've been dreaming about a show about trans girls like that. And I think that was really interesting. Also, I would like to say we were 18 when Girls came out, so we weren't like quite old enough to be...
No, I watched it when I was like 21 and I was like, haha, me. And then I watched it again when I was like 28 and I was like, oh no, this actually is like cut into the bone like of who I am.
Yeah,
who my friends are.
I think as people on like the tail end of millennial, we're kind of like a weird in-between generation at this point, where we're not like full millennial, adulting is hard, and we're not Gen Z, like, wow, I can never remember wearing some like...
An owl necklace.
Yeah, an owl necklace.
Yeah, I think as well, even like the mood of it, like I was talking to Taya Asik, who we've got an interview with on the Dollhouse on Tuesday, and we were saying like we were kind of just like in this aspirational generation, like Obama was in the White House, like everything just kind of like felt really like we'd solved everything. Obviously we hadn't, and like that's a very privileged point of view, but it very much felt that way. Like we felt very like we're everything's just going to continue getting greater.
Yeah, but then as soon as we became actual adults, it went like
everything went like as soon as there was like the Tory and the Lib Dem.
That was literally when we were 15.
As soon as that started affecting me.
Right.
Well, yeah, do you know what I mean?
I think it was 2016. It was the 2015 election when just the Conservatives got into power outside of the coalition, and then it was Trump, and then it was Brexit, and then it was like slam, 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 slam. Like every political experience we've had as adults has been a negative one.
But we had a lot of our teen years when you kind of build these aspirations.
Yeah.
Was such a positive time to do so. Like, and then we all just kind of like got the door shut in our faces. Whereas like the generation below us, even a couple of years below us, grew up in the time with the door shut.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think it's interesting that, like, I mean, this isn't a hot take, but that if Girls is a nostalgia piece, then it means that, and we know we've had essays about it on the site, then it means that people are romanticising girls and, like, romanticising all the job precarity. Not, she was rich, so obviously it doesn't really count, but they're romanticising it for different reasons, which is what the Dollhouse said, right? That, like, they're romanticising it from a economic stability point of view via your parents, but they're also romanticising, like, Bushwick not being gentrified, being able to like walk down the street and wear like silly clothes and like have really long brunches and stuff, whereas everything feels bleak, which is probably why journalists are complaining about their jobs.
Yeah, therefore I think like you see a tweet being like, imagine wearing like stripy tights, you have to get the bus, you've got your Walkman, not your Walkman, like your
Walkman, your iPhone 7,
you've got your iPod Touch, like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's so funny to like hear as aspirational, because that was just like
what was going to happen.
That didn't feel aspirational at the time, that just felt like the norm.
Yeah. But I will say, I feel like if you look at Girls compared to, I mean, this isn't a hot take, but even compared to Broad City, I feel like Broad City is way more realistic to how jobs are now. Like, they had precarious jobs, like, they were always, like, flitting about different work things. Like, I feel like that's more realistic.
Yeah, definitely. I've loved Broad City.
Broad City is so good.
I'd love to rewatch it, you know.
And there's been no English things because English people can't write good coming-of-age shows. Me and Gina could, though.
Yeah, we could actually, if anyone's out there. I would like to commission that. It's funny that we're like talking about like Gen Z seeing that as aspirational though, because I've written like, when did aspiration stop being achievable?
Well, yeah, with our parents even.
Yeah. One
of my friends, Sharon, says that literally the 90s would have been the best time to become an adult, and I absolutely agree. Like, house prices low, new labour, like, obviously I know new labour is shit, but in comparison,
yeah,
you can live wherever you want. Technology's just starting.
Yeah.
Like, literally the golden age. Like, our parents were, what, like 26 in the 90s, 27?
Yeah.
Imagine.
I know. No, actually, I know. My parents got a 0% mortgage. Can you fucking imagine? I'll never own a house.
We might if there's another financial crash.
The bar for what is aspirational has just been lowered and lowered and lowered. Like, people are like, oh my god, imagine being able to rent in the middle of Bushwick. Whereas like in the 90s it would have been like, oh, imagine being able to have like buy a flat in the centre of New York.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, the bar's just getting lowered and lowered of like what we can actually look to see as something achievable for ourselves.
And it's interesting because there's that viral tweet that is saying that like, right now we're at the exact same amount of time that there was between Sex and the City and Girls, and obviously Rachel Sennett, I'm not sure if everyone has seen, has just been commissioned to write, star in, and like showrun basically a show that sounds like the new
Girls
version
too.
of that. Yeah. Like about a codependent friendship group. And it will be what?
Imagine having one of those.
And it'll be interesting to see what that's like, because yeah, everything is so different now, and yeah.
Okay, so how does this all come back to journalism now?
Well, I think part of these shows' appeal as well is that they're presenting a kind of like really glamorous, amazing lifestyle that's like not without its harsh realities that girls showed. Like, that's like the kind of shade that girls brought into it.
And they've got writers as protagonists.
But at the end of the day, they're not real.
I also was like, reading, like, whenever I see an article that's been like, or like a TikTok that's delving into like why so many characters in these TV shows or films were writers, I'm like, because writers wrote them.
Yeah.
One fucking answer is like, because if you're writing something, A, you're putting yourself into it, but B, also it's so much fucking easier to write what you know. And if you know like kind of like what the industry's like, yeah, you can write like a heightened version of it, or like what you'd want it to be like, or like if you're writing a com-rom, if you're writing a com-rom, you want it to be silly and like elevated and fun. Like, you're not going to put the nitty gritty about how someone like stole your lunch out the fucking fridge every week until like you put like fart powder in it or something.
No, this,
but maybe that's quite funny.
This Reddit post was
in our show.
This Reddit post was so good. What the hell is it with rom-coms in the publishing industry by emotional emetic in our movies? Obviously that's like self-explanatory. But then Modern Lover, who's like a Reddit poster, posted, after World War II, book and magazine publishing was a huge industry, and women started taking on editorial positions and other roles in publishing that had been previously dominated by men, and as a whole, the industry employed more women than men. So the rom-com started putting their protagonists in editorial roles because that was a desirable career a woman could advance towards, especially as magazines and books held a far more important role in society than they do now with games, social media, streaming. Previously, in the early 1900s, many women worked as secretaries and copy editors, so you see in early rom-coms the female protagonist was often a secretary, any Cary Grant movie, or store clerk, the shop around the corner, because that's what most women of a certain race and income bracket related to.
Yeah.
Sums it up.
Yeah, it just makes sense then. I also thought, like, it's funny that it says that, like, media used to have more of an importance, and that's, like, why it was more aspirational, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's because I was thinking, like, oh, well, media parties probably aren't the same because the spend isn't the same. Like, ad budgets have to get split between social media and, like, so many different forms of, like, things that media hasn't got the same spend to throw, like, extravagant parties anymore.
I mean, this is very, like, when Vice kind of announced its pivot to social media and everyone was like, their glory days of Vice when there was a Coke budget. It's very that, isn't it?
I know. Where is our Coke budget?
Fuck no, absolutely not.
We've got a blow-dry budget.
Yeah,
that's our aspiration.
We don't even have a blow-dry budget.
Our aspiration for the company is...
yeah, my aspiration is a blow-dry budget.
A blow-dry budget.
Okay, well, thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Ione.
Thank you to the listeners.
Thank you, Olivia.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.